which or when using Terraform to create a RDS, how to save the DB username and password securely. Well, the domain is actually Terraform itself. I have just written Hashicorp, but there is a reason why I have written it as Hashicorp. Take that as a hint for the answer of this question. So here we are speaking about database creations using Terraform. And when you're creating a database using Terraform, you will have to pass certain information. And the question is, how do you save the DB username and password securely? So securely is the key here. So how do you answer this question in the interview? Well, you can pause the video here and see how you would answer it. Let me go ahead and try to answer this question. But before that, let me give you a bit of details about this. DB username, DB passwords are considered to be secrets. Well, what is a secret? It is something that should never be committed in GitHub repository. Remember this. Never share the secrets via email or push it as a part of your commit in the GitHub repository. Neither should you be sending this across Slack. So if you commit something in the GitHub repository, it is an open invitation for someone to actually get this piece of information, that is the DB username and password, and just they can log into the machine or database and delete everything. So why am I speaking of the GitHub repository? Because you will store your Terraform code in the GitHub repository. Hence, it is important that you don't commit the DB names inside the GitHub repository. So where do we store this information then? Because without mentioning a DB name or DB password, it is not possible for us to run our Terraform code. This is where Vault comes into picture. And that is the reason why I have mentioned the domain Hashicorp. Because Vault is also a software developed by Hashicorp or a tool developed by Hashicorp. And we can integrate Terraform and Vault in this case. So how do we do that? The first thing is you will have a Terraform provider section. In this, you should also mention Vault. Once you mention that in your main.pf, that is where you're spinning up your database, this can be rds.tf also, no problem. Inside this, you can reference this as a data block. All my friends watching this video who have understood Terraform will be knowing what is data block. And hence you can reference the secrets in the part of data block and pass it as DB username and password. What actually happens is when you are running Terraform apply, the machine or the place where running it will have access to Vault, and it will be able to fetch the DB username, DB details from Vault and apply it during runtime. So what you have to do is instead of mentioning the DB username and DB password as a part of your code, Terraform code, you actually save it in Vault, and Terraform will pull these details during the Terraform apply runtime, and then it is going to set up the database. Isn't this the secure way? Definitely it is, because Vault is a secure way of storing all your secrets, and you have not committed any of this code into the GitHub repository with secrets. And here you only reference to the Vault location, the key and value pairs. So hence, when you run Terraform apply, it will work fine. So this is a complex question to begin with. So I would request you that if you have not understood this completely, I would ask you to read about data block first, and also read about Vault integration in Terraform provider. But this question can be asked in the interview. Well, if you don't use Vault, and if you don't want to integrate this Vault, you can also use any other cloud secret engines like Secret Manager in AWS to store DB username and passwords. But kindly note, it has to be a secret manager that has to be used. You should not use an S3 bucket or something, because then it is again stored in plain text format in S3. Well, this is the details about this. So how do we answer this question? To make sure that we don't commit DB username and DB password into the GitHub repository as part of our Terraform code, we can integrate the Terraform with HashiCorp Vault. We have a provider for this, so we can mention Vault provider in our Terraform provider section. And in our main code, that is the Terraform code, we reference the key and value pairs, and we can do that by also referencing the data block. What actually happens is when we run Terraform apply, the Terraform apply will try to reach out to Vault, the address given, and it is going to fetch these key value pairs from the path, and then we will create the database with the DB username and password. Needless to say, the DB username and password first has to be also registered in Vault, meaning you should have a key and value with username and password so that it can be integrated during the build time. This is how we can make sure that none of the secrets like DB username or DB passwords, or for that matter, any kinds of secrets will get integrated with our GitHub repository, which is a very bad practice. If we don't use Vault, we can use any other secret storage engines. Example, in AWS, we have Secret Manager. Secret Manager is also a good option if we don't have Vault set up in our organization. Well, this is how you can answer this particular question in the interview. Your security team has insisted that certain packages, security related packages maybe, has to be present on all the instances for a defense project. How would you come up with a solution for such a design and ensure that these packages will be present on all the EC2 instances that you will use? So think about a probable solution that you might come up for such a use case. And this can be asked in the interview if you're attempting a service-oriented company or a defense-oriented company. It is important as a DevOps engineer to be aware how to handle such scenarios. Okay, let me go ahead and try to answer this particular question. The answer that I have chosen here is Hashicorp Packer. So what is Packer? Packer is an open source tool that enables you to create identical machine images for multiple platforms from a single source template. The common use case is also mentioned as creating of golden images that teams across the organizations can use in cloud infrastructure. Well, this is similar to AWS AMI. So if you want, you can also answer to this question that we use custom AMI images as a solution. This is also a perfect answer and there is no problem. But I would like to introduce you to the other tools. Hence, I'm mentioning Hashicorp Packer. If you have not worked on Hashicorp Packer, then mention about AMI, Amazon AMI, and you can mention that you have used Amazon AMI to create the image. Now, Hashicorp Packer is very famous because you can mention the kind of image that you want to create in a JSON format and use Packer to create the base operating system image and store it securely with different versioning and etc. And all your systems, that is the infrastructure that will get spinned up, they can now start pulling this operating system image, and you can have complete control of versioning and security, etc. here. Well, I hope that makes sense. So how do we answer this question in the interview? We use Hashicorp Packer to achieve this result, or I would suggest Hashicorp Packer to achieve this result because it is used for creating what we call as golden images, which can be used for such a project, especially defense-related projects where we want custom AMI images or operating systems. Well, if we don't know Hashicorp Packer, or if we are not aware of this tool, then I would also suggest that as an alternative, we can use Amazon AMI for the same. Amazon AMI can also give us the result, but a kind note I would like to add here is if we are using Amazon AMI, we might be restricted to the cloud. If you are using HashiCorp Packer, we can move across different multi-cloud setup or on-premises also. Well, this is how you can answer this particular question in the interview. The question is, what is a remote execute in Terraform and when will we use it? Again, if you have taken a Terraform training, then this particular concept would have been taught. If not, it is totally fine. It is an extension of Terraform, meaning it's a topic in Terraform that you might not use it in many cases and you might use it in many cases. Again, if this is asked in the interview, how will we answer this? Let us try to understand this. But before we do so, we have to first understand what is Terraform remote execute. And to understand this, let us see what the definition says. Terraform remote execute basically is to invoke a script on a remote resource after it is created. By what? By Terraform. So once the Terraform creates, let's say, an EC2 instance, and if you want to run some script after that, you can use remote execute. It is another way of saying we are able to bootstrap this machine or a cluster after it has spinned up. That is, after an EC2 machine has spun up successfully, you can run this remote execute and it will run some steps. Example, let us say you want to install an agent or update a package. You can make it as a part of remote execute and it will run after the resource has been created. Please don't confuse remote execute with local execute. Local execute is also another option, but it cannot be used in this case. What is local execute? If you're interested, try to explore this later. But as of now, focusing on remote execute, it is a provisioner that will run a script after the resource has been provisioned by Terraform. Needless to say, it needs to have an SSH or a WinRM connection for the resource so that it can log in and run the particular script. So how do you answer this in the interview? Remote execute is a provisioner that will execute any given script on my resource after Terraform has successfully provisioned. An example that I would like to give is, let us say we are spinning up an EC2 instance, and after the EC2 instance has spun up successfully, we might want to run certain script. In this case, I would prefer to use remote execute so that after the resource has been successfully provisioned by my Terraform, these kind of scripts can run. I hope you understood this particular questions as a part of this video and also were able to reevaluate your knowledge on DevOps. Thank you. How to validate the variable during Terraform plan time? Example, you take a variable called AMI. We need to make sure that it's in a proper format. I will try to elaborate the question a bit more in case it is confusing. So let us take an example that we are spinning up an EC2 instance. And for an EC2 instance that we will spin up using Terraform, we will specify multiple resources, and AMI is something we are going to specify in our variable.tf, right? var.tf. Now, when you specify this AMI ID, you might make some mistakes. You might give AMI ID that is in the wrong format. So most of the AMIs are in this format, right? Some number, etc. Now you might make a mistake here by giving just the number, let us say. This is a wrong AMI ID. Now, if you don't observe this properly, what happens is your Terraform apply will fail. When you do Terraform apply, what happens is this particular code is going to fail and you're going to wonder why it is failing. This issue that I just explained regarding the variable declaration can be avoided during Terraform plan time itself. And that is what the question is all about. I hope now it makes sense. So you can pause this video to see how you would answer this in the interview. Let me go ahead and try to answer this particular question. Out of all the code that we have, I have very specifically picked the AMI related variable block here. And you can see the type is string. I have given a description and a default value. Now, default value is something that will be used if the user will not specify his own EMI ID. So if they leave it blank, then we are going to pick the default. But the exceptional thing I would like to explain here for you guys is the validation part that we see in the bottom. If you observe the validation part in the bottom, you can see that I have written a condition. So let us understand this condition. What does this condition say? The condition is basically saying that it's condition 1. Let me break it up first. It is condition 1, and condition 2. So we have to satisfy both the condition because of the and condition between. Okay. The first condition is the length of the AMI has to be greater than 4. So it has to be, AMI 1, 2, 4, 6. It has to be greater than 4. Okay, less than 4, it is going to fail. And the second condition here is the substring. That is from the AMI ID, we are picking the substring that is AMI dash. So 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay, now it's proper. There is no 0 there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And here what is happening is we are checking the spaces here. That is the index will start from 0, but we will mention 0 to 4. And you can see there are 4 first variables that are getting picked. And these 4 first variables have to match our condition. Okay. So the substring is going to pick AMI dash, and it is going to compare with AMI dash. And if it matches, then the condition is satisfied. Now, if you give an AMID, let us say AME dash, is it equal to AMI dash? It is not. So condition is going to fail here. And the Terraform plan is going to fail also at the same time. So this is a certain way in which we can do some conditioning and validation. And this is called as validation block, as I have mentioned before. And during using this validation, we can catch errors much before the Terraform apply. Okay. So the errors are caught in the Terraform plan state itself, and it will not go to Terraform apply state. So this is the answer for this particular question, and how to formulate this answer in the interview, because you might not be able to give this example directly. So how to formulate this answer? This is how you can do it. In Terraform, we have a validation block which we can use. And using this condition block, we can mention a condition that the length of the AMI has to be certain number, and the starting of the AMI is also proper. Based on this condition, what will happen is if the user enters the AMI ID, we can validate this particular AMI ID during the plan of Terraform plan, because the validation block will also run during the Terraform plan section. I would like to also add that we can give custom error messages, meaning if this particular validation fails, we can share a message to the user telling that you have to enter a proper AMI ID. Well, this is how you can answer this particular question if it is asked in the interview. What does Terraform state lock really mean? Do we have any practical use case of it? I am sure everyone would have heard of the term Terraform state, and you would have also read about Terraform state lock. The question is more focused towards Terraform state lock and why it really plays a role. Does it really have a use case at all? You can pause this video to see how you would answer this question in the interview. And I would like to say that I encourage you to do this. You have to pause the video and see how you would answer it, so that you can compare the explanation I gave later and also how I answer it in the other part of the video. Very well. Let me explain a bit about Terraform state lock to begin with, and then I will explain how to tackle this question in the interview. If supported by your backend, that is, if your backend supports Terraform lock, then Terraform will lock your state for all operations that would write your state. This prevents others from acquiring the lock and potentially making your state file corrupt. State locking happens automatically on all operations that you would read or that would write the state. Sorry. So the third point here is critical that I would like you to understand a bit. That is, irrespective of whatever you do, if you touch the state and the state wants to be written, that is, if you want to write something to the state, then Terraform lock automatically happens. You won't see any message when this is happening because it's an automatic process. Now, if the lock fails, that is, if Terraform is unable to lock the state file, then the Terraform would probably fail and it will not continue with Terraform apply. If you want to disable the lock, then you can use this extra parameter called as -lock. But like I have mentioned here, it is not recommended to disable the lock. If acquiring the locks takes much longer for whatever reason it is, Terraform will output a status message saying that it is having some hard time acquiring a lock, and you can debug this. If Terraform doesn't output any messages, then very well, it is working fine and you don't have to worry about it. All of this information that I have shared here is directly coming from the documentation. Okay, let me explain a bit about the state file, how it works. So we have Terraform state file and we have some users, right? We have user here. And let us say this is a user and he is running Terraform apply. Okay. And there is a Terraform plan and apply is happening and state will be written, right? It's in write mode. And there is some infrastructure that is getting generated, right? Example. At the same time, let us say that the user 2, I have made it user 1. This is user 1 and user 2. User 2 also is running apply on the same state file, okay, of EC2. What should happen? Now, if there is no Terraform lock, scenario 1, if there is no lock, okay, what could happen is the state file will get corrupted, right? Because two people are writing at the same time, and there could be a chance that it would corrupt our state file. And it is also not preferable. So imagine yourself in a scenario where you have a document and two people are trying to write to the same document. You will encounter an issue for sure. And that is where Terraform state lock comes into picture. So in scenario number 2, there is a lock applied. That is, when user 1 is trying to write, user 2 will have to wait. Once the user 1 finishes writing successfully, user 2 will acquire the lock, and then he is going to apply his changes, and Terraform is going to apply his changes on the file. This is the purpose of Terraform lock, and it is super important. And like the explanation that I previously provided to you, it automatically happens in the backend. You don't have to worry about it. But if you want to disable it, you can, which is not recommended. Okay, so how would you answer this question in the interview? Terraform lock is an automatic process that happens in the back when we run Terraform apply. And it plays a very major role because using Terraform lock, what happens is we lock the state file for any further write actions from any particular user at the same time. This is very critical because if there is no lock applied, there is a very high chance that we might end up correcting our state file. In which case, we might encounter that our state is correct, and we will have a bigger complication to handle in such cases, which we should avoid it at any state. So this is how you can answer this particular question in the interview. When running Terraform apply, the process gets hung. Now, if you cancel this, it might result in corrupt Terraform state. How would you debug this issue? So, what is the interviewer trying to get from you? Here, we are trying to see from the interviewer's point of view, they are trying to see, have you run Terraform apply? One, have you seen any edge cases while running Terraform apply and using Terraform apply? Also, how often have you really worked with Terraform state files? Before I answer this question, I must say this scenario is very uncommon. So if you have not come across this scenario, it is totally fine. This is something that might not occur at all, but definitely this will occur in cases if you are running Terraform apply a lot. If you have a repository that has a main code for your cloud account, and then you're running Terraform apply every half an hour or every an hour, then this kind of issue can appear. How would you go about solving this issue? There is a special command here called as Terraform state pull, and let me explain about it. We will take a terminal where you're running Terraform apply. Terraform apply. So this is terminal 1. When you're running this Terraform apply command, it will get hung. Why does it get hung? There are some reasons for this. One, the connection between the cloud account or the local file system where you are running it, that is your MacBook or your laptop, is broken. This is scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 is the state file doesn't have a proper locking system, and then there is multiple writes happening at the same time. 3, there is a issue with the resource itself, that is the AWS resource or the Google resource or the Microsoft Azure resource itself, which is causing this problem. 3 scenarios. So if you encounter this issue, that is when you're running Terraform apply, after a few minutes, there is no updates happening, then how would you go about saving your state file? One easy way is open a new terminal. So this is going to be terminal 2. And from this terminal, run Terraform state pull. What is this going to do is it's going to get the Terraform state file, tf.state file, into your local file system immediately. So you have a backup of your file system. Now what you can do, the next step here is you can do Control+C or cancel this process. Control+C or cancel this process. And then try to run Terraform apply again. Second attempt, you run the Terraform apply again. If your Terraform state file is corrupted, then this is going to fail. It is most likely it might going to fail. What you can do, now go back to the source of your state file, replace the state file with your backup. So replace that with your backup and then rerun your Terraform apply and it will pass. This is the scenario that will likely occur in case you are doing a lot of things with the state file. One solution to solve this is also that you need to have different state files for different resources to separate it. This is a modularization, separating the different resources into different state files. This will allow you more flexibility. Okay, so how do we answer this question? This is how we can answer this question in the interview. The issue that we are speaking here might be a very uncommon issue, but let us consider it appeared. I think of certain solutions. To begin with, I remember a command called as Terraform state pull command. So what I would do immediately, if I see that my Terraform apply is failing or is in hung state, I would immediately open a new terminal and run a Terraform state pull command. This command will pull this Terraform state file into my local system. Now I have a complete backup of my state file. This is what I needed. After this, I would cancel my previous Terraform apply and then apply the Terraform apply, run the Terraform apply again. Most cases, if it fails, I have a backup of my state file, and then I will replace the existing corrupt state file with a new state file. This is how we can solve this problem. Here is how we can present this particular answer in the interview.